Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and NFL free agency is less than 24 hours away. And I already gave you my top 20-ish offensive targets for the San Francisco 49ers. Now we're taking our turn into the defense, and I'm going to share with you around 20 more free agent targets for the San Francisco 49ers who are trying to bulk up on defense, get younger, and hopefully maybe recreate something that the Seattle Seahawks have going on out there. Now they are Super Bowl champions, but look, the San Francisco 49ers have some work to do, and with new defensive coordinator Raheem Morris now in place, it's going to look different than what it has the last couple seasons. So we're going to make a change somewhat with the schematics. Which players would have fit last year do not fit this year, which means the Niners can have some fun. They'll get some new faces in, maybe some players that you liked, but really didn't fit Robert Saleh's scheme. Now they feel what Raheem Morris wants to do in San Francisco. So it should be some fun. At the end of today's show, I will give you my complete 49ers 2026 free agency predictions. So stay tuned for that. Shouldn't be too long here. I have around, again, 20 targets for the Niners in today's show. And without further ado, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave us that 5-star audio podcast review. And let's kick things off with a question, more of a comment by Marcos Perez on Facebook. He says, trade the first-round pick for Jalen Carter. I get the sentiment. I will push back and say I don't want a player that has massive character concerns and has seen his production dip in the last couple seasons and will have to be paid in around a year or two. So I get the sentiment. San Francisco needs that massive 3-tech, the pass rusher on the interior, next to Bosa, Collins, and Michael. But I don't think Jalen Carter is the answer. But maybe I have that answer for the Niners in today's show. What a tease, right? What a tease. That said, let's start with the trenches. And let's start off with the edge rusher class in the free agent market, which has a lot of names. Many of them the Niners can't afford to pay for, but there are some guys that can be kind of that B tier, $10 to $12 million a year type of player. I think San Francisco can afford this offseason. And let's do something that we usually don't do. And let's go out to New England and let's talk about former top pick K'Lavon Chaisson. That's right. K'Lavon Chaisson, a player that was, I think, a high draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys, I think. Failed, went to the Raiders and kind of failed, but has found his footing with the Patriots, nearly won a Super Bowl this last season, and was the person to jump Keon White, who is now in San Francisco, on the Patriots depth chart. So there is some connectivity with New England in San Francisco and K'Lavon Chaisson. But this past year, for the Patriots, he had a really big jump in production as a pass rusher. That's what he'll be if he does get signed by San Francisco. Market value is around $9 million according to Spotrac, so give or take some money right there. But he's a third down pass rushing specialist. Thus, he would replace Bryce Huff. He'd have to get cut to make way for Chaisson. But last year with the Patriots, 74 pressures, 12 sacks, and 11.5 pass rush win rate, and 29 run stops on his box score. Again, not a run stuffer, not a run defender. He's not going to play, not going to start for San Francisco. So he's going to replace Bryce Huff as the pass rushing specialist, but he's a guy who finally found his footing, could be a late bloomer for San Francisco, somebody they've kind of been known to grab, albeit he already made his jump last year. Maybe there's more to that, playing alongside Nick Bosa, Alfred Collins, and maybe some more free agent targets they sign in free agency this year. But let's keep it going. That is the first name on our list, K'Lavon Chaisson. But there are more, and many that are going to connect to new defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, because when you leave a place, the odds are you want to bring impending free agents to where you call home the next season. Now with Morris out there in San Francisco, the big kind of name circled off the edge is Arnold Ebiketie. And like Chaisson, like Bryce Huff, he'll probably be more of that pass rushing specialist, not somebody you put out there on first, second, and third downs. Not going to play base down for yous on most days. Although he does provide more run defending upside than a player like Bryce Huff, because last year with the Falcons, Ebiketie had a 65.2 run defense grade, a 57.5 pass rushing grade, with a 16.8% pass rush win rate, 2 sacks, and 25 pressures. Keep in mind, the average, or like the kind of the mark to surpass to be a starting caliber pass rusher, is about 10% when it comes to pass rush win rate. Ebiketie is 6.8% ahead of the average, that kind of Mendoza line, if you will, for edge rushers. So he's somebody that can get to the quarterback, albeit the numbers don't really tell you that. The PFF analytics definitely do. And I think if the Niners want to cut Huff and save around $5 million, you can put Ebiketie in there and you really wouldn't miss too much of a beat, albeit I do think Huff is better. I just think it comes down to fit in Raheem Morris's defense, because having played in it, Huff now kind of becomes this like, you're kind of on the outside of the bubble. What do we do with you? I think Ebiketie will make sense in San Francisco and probably be somebody they sign this offseason, knowing his history with Raheem Morris. But we have a question from Lori Matthews, one of our favorites on the YouTube chat, and she says, "Hey, Sterling, do you think the Niners make any moves tomorrow, or will they be more active on Tuesday and Wednesday after some big names are gone?" Just because the big names are, maybe out there or they're higher priced doesn't mean you can't sign lower level free agents on Monday. But I would expect San Francisco to be in on plenty of players. Alec Pierce, they'll talk to John Franklin Myers, may even sign John Franklin Myers. He's on this list later in the show. But yeah, maybe I wouldn't word it that way. I don't think the day of activity matters as much, but I'm going to assume they'll be in the kind of B and C tier. Like that to me is where they'll live at, which I think is a good thing. You don't want to pay a ton of money for a guy, then not be able to allocate funds elsewhere. They have a lot of depth needs. Got to find some starters in some places. So I don't think the day matters too much, Lord, but I do think that when it comes to the caliber of player, yeah, you're right. More of the B tier and C tier guys probably fit San Francisco's needs a lot more. William says, "What's up, big guy?" Right back at you, brother. Hope you're doing well. And the 49ers 2025 asks, "What's up, Sterling? Do you think the Niners trade for Jalen Carter?" I don't, but he also adds, "Which picks or Niner players goes to Philadelphia?" Well, really, I don't think anybody goes. It would have to cost you a first-round draft pick, probably. I don't think San Francisco wants to do that. But if, let's make up something, right? It'd probably be pick 27 and maybe a third, pick 27, maybe a fourth-round draft pick. But I do think San Francisco would be reluctant to make that deal, knowing that they have some holes, but two, they have to pay him pretty soon. So I don't think that's really going to happen this offseason, nor should it, because I do not like Jalen Carter. Dive into his history. A lot of bad things there. There's a reason he fell in the draft, albeit not too far. Not really a big fan of him, but good player, just not fitting what the regime wants in their players in San Francisco. Again, great player, just the right archetype, minus the character concerns, but the wrong person, if that hopefully can make some sense for you. Moving along, though, because we got plenty of names to get to today on the defensive side, is the next one, and it is a kind of a depth piece that will fill in towards more of your edge 4, your 5. He can play inside, he can play outside. That is Panthers free agent DJ Wonnum. I've wanted him for the last 2 off seasons. Back when he was in Minnesota with Brian Flores, he flashed, had some injuries, went to Carolina, kind of got pushed down the depth chart a lot with the kind of induction of talent they've seen out there in Carolina. But I think as a depth piece, Wonnum could fit in really well in San Francisco. Market value is not too high, around $6 million. Last year with the Panthers, 31 pressures, 3 sacks, and 8.6% pass rush win rate. Pretty steady run defender to a 61.6 run defense grade, and 23 run stops. Again, I think the Niners have to find, yes, starters in some places, but also you have to improve your depth. You like Sam Okawanu, you like Keon White, you make up Bryce Huff, who knows, you like Michael Williams, and of course you love Nick Bosa, but how about finding a replacement for Robert Bill Jr. and getting better in return and not have to be over-reliant on guys like Clelin Ferrell off the practice squad? I think one could be kind of be that like day 4 or 5 of free agency, everyone else is gone, kind of nice veteran floor-raising move for San Francisco. Keeping it moving here on the show, I've already seen some comments by Bobo saying, go get Boye Mafe. Well, funny enough, Bobo, that's the next guy on my list. And keep in mind, none of these are in order. They're just players I think San Francisco could and should target in free agency this offseason. Boye Mafe is awesome, and it always helps taking a player away from your NFC West rival who just won a Lombardi Trophy this past year. I think Boye Mafe is kind of gearing up for a breakout. Had a good year last year with Seattle, 44 pressures, 2 sacks, and 11.3% pass rush win rate. He is a starting caliber player, bar none. I think he's somebody that if you want to slide Mike Williams inside more often, you plug in Mafe. It's a massive upgrade over there past Bryce Huff. But last year for Seattle, a 67.8 run defense grade, a 69.2 pass rushing grade. So high upside. I think a player who kind of got buried behind that really good defensive line and a change of scenery, maybe getting more starting reps. I think he's kind of gearing up to kind of be the next, I don't want to say bust, but a guy that really hasn't lived up to potential, finally hitting it in his next destination. And for $12 million a year, it's really not expensive at all. You can go 2 for 12. You can go 3 for 36. It wouldn't be a bad deal either way. So big Boye Mafe fan, would love him in San Francisco. In fact, I think Larry Krueger asked me during the season, if you can pluck one defensive player away and put him in San Francisco, of course you could mention, Murphy and Leonard Williams, but I picked Boye Mafe. I was like, put that guy on the edge in San Francisco and you'd have a lot of fun. Get to the quarterback, pin his ears back and go. I think he fits Raheem Morris's system a lot. And I think could be, if they want a starting edge player, I don't know if they do because of Michael Williams, but if they do, Mafe could be a very big piece they can add this offseason for not that big of a price at around $12 million this year. The next player, though, one I don't see many people talking about, which is always good. Now he may go back to Detroit, but how about Al-Quadin Muhammad? An older player, roughly 30 years old, going to cost you around $8 million and be that, again, third down edge rusher. So the market won't be too high for him. But we're all looking at Ebiketie and Chaisson and Boye Mafe. How can you steal guys from Seattle? How about stealing somebody from the Detroit Lions, who I know aren't great anymore, but the defensive line 2 years ago was really good. And I think Muhammad can be an instant impact player for 2 years in San Francisco. Not going to cost you a lot. Not going to be, a 4 or 5 year contract. He'll be around for 2 years. And again, the last year for Detroit, in a down year for Detroit, mind you, 53 pressures, 12 sacks, a 15.4% pass rush win rate. Added in, 15 run stops, the 12 sacks, a 71.9 pass rushing grade. So there is some upside there. My assumption is he may go back to Detroit, but if he doesn't, and San Francisco wants to upgrade over Bryce Huff in the pass rushing department, Muhammad could be a big piece that they can add and keep Mike Hill as the number 2 edge rusher and kind of try what they did last year again, albeit with an upgrade over Bryce Huff on the opposite edge of Nick Bosa. And unfortunately, not a run defender, a 59.3 run defense grade. It's better than a lot of pass rushing specialists, but in the world, kind of in the worlds of Chaisson, Ebiketie, and Muhammad, he finds himself kind of in between those guys, which isn't the worst, but also isn't great. So again, he'll be that third down edge rusher, kind of copying paste what they tried last year, just putting Muhammad in the Bryce Huff role this year. ManorGoat16 asks in the YouTube chat, do you feel we should draft best player available? Drafting for need hasn't panned out. Yeah, I would love BPA. I think everybody should want BPA. The Niners should want BPA. That's just not what they do. You see this team needs defensive tackle, a 3-tech. You see they need a wide receiver, maybe a tight end, maybe an offensive lineman. The Niners always draft for need. And I think it's gotten them into trouble. And I think their successes have been kind of skewed because when you suck, everything's a need. So Kittle, Warner, Bosa, all those guys are needs. But I think that's what they should do. However, I just have a hard time believing this front office will change things after saying we went to 2 Super Bowls and whatnot. They may draft the same position twice. They may double dip. I do not see San Francisco changing their draft strategy. Now, let's not forget that you may need a wide receiver, and that could be the BPA. So it isn't always so cut and dry, but yes, Snyder go at 16. I do think they should go BPA, whether it's a guard, whether it's a tackle, albeit maybe not tackle, but guard, defensive tackle, safety for sure. I would do that over drafting, a reach of a receiver or a reach of, a cornerback or whatever it may be. I don't know. But yeah, I would say BPA is usually the best percentage of success. And yes, Bobo, no more kickers in round 3. I would agree. Thankfully, Eddie Pinheiro, 4-year contract, $17 million. Good for Eddie. Good for San Francisco. Good to have him back in the Bay. And thankfully, it avoids San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan saying, 3rd-round kicker. Now they can table the kicker talk for at least 2 years and hopefully the entirety of that contract that Pinheiro signed yesterday. So a good deal there. Let's move on because many of you out there are mentioning Jalen Carter and some of you out there saying, defensive tackle. I think the Niners are better served signing a 3-tech than trading for one or drafting one as a starter. Because the last thing you want to do is reach for a player in round 1, but also 2, you don't want to trade assets for a player that maybe has to get paid in 2 years, isn't cost controlled. I know sometimes it works out, but San Francisco will have extensions like Purdy, like Kittle, Warner, Bosa, inevitably Trent again, where those cap hits start climbing up. The one thing you don't want to do is trade some high-end assets for a guy that's only here for 2 years and wants to get paid. That's why I think you have heard names like John Franklin Myers being high on San Francisco's list. He's probably like the belle of the ball in regards to 3-techs this offseason. He's a starter, bar none. He's awesome. He was with the Rams with Raheem Morris, the Jets with Robert Saleh, and with the Broncos last year. And outside of one Jets year, he really has produced the last couple seasons, and he's been one of the better defensive tackles in the last 2 years. In 2025 for the Broncos, 43 pressures, 8 sacks, a 12.6% pass rush win rate with a 66.5 run defense grade and 10 stops. So a well-rounded player, gets to the quarterback, can rush the passer, and he is one of 3 defensive tackles that has 8 sacks and at least 39 pressures over the last 2 seasons. I think it's like Leonard Williams and somebody else. And then it's, of course, John Franklin Myers. And everybody talks about, DeForest Buckner, you made a mistake trading him away and this, that, and the other. San Francisco can end, at least in my opinion, their search for that type of player. And John Franklin Myers this offseason, he's good, guys. He's really good. He's probably going to get paid. I don't know if San Francisco wants to go that high. We'll see what he gets. He may be talking about, $40 million for a guy for 3 years. It can get really ugly fast, so we'll see what they do, but they'll be in on him for sure. I just don't know if they can keep up to win the race for him in free agency in the next couple days. We have some more questions here in the YouTube chat. William says, do you think K'Lavon Thibodeaux will be worth making a trade for? Well, it depends on what you give up. However, I do think the best time to trade for him was last year at the trade deadline because he would have had half a year control and all of 2026. However, he'll be on his 5th-year option this year, and it's only a one-year player. Now, I think Thibodeaux has high upside. first round draft pick a handful of years ago, took on a lot of double teams last year. And that can obviously pay dividends for Bosa and my kind of other guys in that room. But I feel like that Thibodeau, the time they trade for him was last year during the year. I know the cost is probably going to be a 4th or 5th round draft pick. That's fair. I get that. But why would you pay for a guy who hasn't had over 5.5 sacks in the last 2 years? His production has dipped mightily the last 2 years, despite having Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Abdul Carter on the same defensive line as him. So I think there is upside for sure. It just seems like he's trending the wrong direction, which that could mean getting a new regime in place, going to a new destination, getting a scenery change. But I would not be trading away a 4th round draft pick for a guy on a 1-year deal for $14 million. I'd rather sign K'Lavon Chaisson, Ebiketie, Boye Mafe for a similar price tag for 2 or 3 years. Give yourself some roster control over somebody, not lose the asset in the process. Because right now, San Francisco probably isn't looking at many comp picks next year. So I wouldn't trade my draft picks this year either for guys like Thibodeau. Brandon asks, what about Bradley Chubb? I almost put Chubb on here. However, I don't know what he wants because I don't think he believes he is a third down player or kind of, third edge rusher. I think he believes he's a starter. Fair enough. I just don't think San Francisco, for a player like Chubb, should be moving aside Mykel Williams. I think Mykel, you have to give him the reps and time to grow. He'll be in year 2 off the ACL injury. I do think Chubb will cost around $16 million a year, $14 million a year, and probably wants to start. And I don't think San Francisco can afford him that this upcoming season. So I get it. Trade deadline guy. San Francisco tried to get him. It didn't work out. Now he's a free agent, so why not try again? I just don't know what he wants, and I don't think it aligns with what San Francisco wants this offseason. The 49ers 2025 asks, Isaac Seumalo to San Francisco. I mentioned him on the podcast on Friday when it was the offensive target. So if you want to see that one, finish this show first and go back and watch my 20-ish or so offensive targets I released on Friday. So this is all defense today, no offense, and we'll get into my predictions towards the end of the show. But moving on the interior defensive line, because this next one feels like a given. It feels like a guarantee it'll happen. That is David Onyemata signing with the San Francisco 49ers. Former Falcon, older guy, veteran player, not going to cost you too much money. Maybe $10 million at most for 1 year. And that's, again, at most, in my opinion. But this is a 3-down player. You plug next to Alfred Collins and next to CJ West. This past year with the Falcons, a 67.1 pass rush grade, 21 pressures, 1 sack, a 9.7% pass rush win rate, a 74.2 run defense grade, and 25 stops. The Niners have to have a space-eating defensive tackle when they want to do 5-man fronts and penny fronts and move guys around, and Morris wants to get creative. Onyemata knows the system, knows what he wants, and fits the mold for a player like that. Of the grouping of free agents this year, he feels like the guarantee guy going to the San Francisco 49ers from the Falcons last year with Raheem Morris. But that doesn't mean he's the only guy they can target, because no one's talking about the Buccaneers. And you may say, well, yeah, Sterling, this is a 49er show. And I would say the Buccaneers may have one of the more underrated defensive tackles that can play off the edge, that has played in a 3-4, 4-3 system hybrid with the Buccaneers. He can run stunts, and he gives you versatility off the defensive line where Onyemata doesn't. Franklin Myers does a little bit. He can play off the edge, but you want him on the interior. I do think a player like Logan Hall from Tampa Bay can make a lot of sense in San Francisco. Market value is around $8 million. He'll be a starter for you if you sign him. Last year with the Bucs, 32 pressures, 2 sacks, and 11.1% pass rush win rate, but a 66 run defense grade and 10 stops. I think he, like Boye Mafe, are kind of waiting for their next opportunity. When they get it, I think they can run with it, and I would love to get Logan Hall in San Francisco. He feels like a Jet, unfortunately, in my opinion, but I would want to see what he can do with Raheem Morris and Bosa and Michael and Collins, because I do think there is so much potential in him as a pass rusher, and he already has that baseline run defense where you're like, okay, like you can see the takeoff point is near for him, at least in my eyes. Moving along, though, to the linebacker room, because I don't know what San Francisco wants to do at linebacker. You have Fred Warner. You know what he can bring you. He's elite, the best linebacker in football. But do you trust D. Winters? Do you believe in Nick Martin? Do you bring back Luke Gifford? Do you re-sign Garrett Wallow? John Lynch mentioned Eric Kendricks to San Francisco again, playing next to Fred. I don't love that. So I do think San Francisco could be in the market for a linebacker. However, they don't like to invest a lot of money unless you're Fred Warner. Maybe you're Dre Greenlaw. And so that does give me pause. However, I do think there are some names out there San Francisco can bring in and find a lot of success. The big one, of course, is Leo Chenal. Now, Chenal is somebody who probably wants to be the guy. He can play Mike linebacker, he can play Sam linebacker. He's probably going to get paid. The market value will probably be around at $9 to $10 million this offseason, maybe more if things get really nuts. But he's awesome. He is probably the most well-rounded linebacker on the market this offseason that's young and growing and ready to take off again out of Kansas City. And he really was kind of blocked in Kansas City. So I think when you look at it and his box score and his numbers and his PFF grades, a 75.1 defensive grade last year, a 72.6 coverage grade, and a 76.2 run defense grade. 24 run stops, 11 pressures, 3 sacks, gives you blitzing upside. More importantly here, though, only an 8.2% missed tackle rate. One thing that has plagued San Francisco's linebackers and defense is missed tackles. And Chenal does not miss tackles. You want to be somewhere around, 10 to 12%. And if you're under that, you're at a great place. He's 8.2%. He's in a great spot for linebackers and missed tackles. The coverage can be better, but it's right there you want it to be. He flies around, he makes plays. Had 1 interception last year, gave up 1 touchdown last year as well. And so I think Chenal probably gets paid a lot of money, but it's worth putting him on here because if San Francisco wants to make a big splash in free agency at linebacker, Chenal is the best guy out there. Like he's the best dude that can play Sam and start for San Francisco immediately. But we have a great comment here in the YouTube chat by Renee, and he's right. He says, what about Caden Ellis? I'm sure many of you out there saw the report this morning that he has many intriguing teams or teams showing interest in him as a free agent, and lo and behold, he makes the list. He's somebody that knows Raheem Morris' system, can play Sam, can play Will. I just have concerns, not of his fit with Morris, just what he can do for this defense and what he provides, because you got to be able to cover if you are a Niners linebacker, and he leaves a lot to be desired. Last year with the Falcons, same defensive run in San Francisco, or very close similarities to it. 61.8 coverage grade, 106.7 passer rating allowed, 4 touchdowns allowed. Not great in that department by a wide margin, but there are 4 pass breakups. There's 1 interception, and he's around the 11.7% missed tackle rate. So kind of around where you want to be, for a linebacker for the 49ers. But I do like him. I think he makes some sense. I think he flies around, makes plays. But again, there are some concerns. The run defense, not great. A lot of stops, which is good. 41 stops last year. It's amazing. But where Ellis really thrives is as that blitzing linebacker coming down this hauling ass down in the box, trying to get home to the quarterback. He had 30 pressures last year and 4 sacks, had an 83.6% pass rush win rate. So he's different than what San Francisco currently has at linebacker, which could make him a kind of nice target for them, which is why he's on here. The market value says $8.9 million. We'll see how high it gets because he is a very specific scheme fit. And I know San Francisco has a scheme he played in last year. I just like, why can't Nicholas Martin be that is my question. Now, maybe you don't trust him to be more comfortable with his guys. That makes sense. But I just have some questions about Ellis. I like him. I just think that his upside is more towards being a blitzing linebacker pass rusher compared to being a coverage player, which has been more of what San Francisco has done in the past and liked in the past. So with the scheme change, maybe I have to change as well. Who knows? Let's get back to the YouTube chat for a second because Lori Matthews asks again, what do you make and what do you think of the Eberflus hiring? What role will he have? He'll be an assistant. My assumption is he'll be the assistant head coach and the red zone guy again. He'll probably be more integral into the development of the linebackers. He was a really big reason for the Colts linebackers taking a big step when he was the DC there, and was a reason why you did see, despite how bad their defense was the first year he was there, the Bears linebackers grow pretty quickly as the head coach. I don't hate the move. I just think it's a move that you do to have some continuity in the room if Morris leaves after 1 year. But also, I think Eberflus was brought in to be or to help with the run defense. You go look at his stats as a DC in Indianapolis, the head coach of the Bears, or even in Dallas last year, albeit last year was kind of a mess. He was the worst defensive coordinator in football by a wide margin, minus Aaron Glenn with the Jets. So, some guys aren't made to be defensive coordinators or head coaches, but as an assistant, you'd love that. But his run defense, I think, was top 10 all but 1 year with the Colts. Then he goes to Chicago. They were a mess. They were an absolute joke. They were the second worst run defense in football his first year. They jumped to number 2 in the NFL the following season. So personnel changes that for sure, but I think he knows how to scheme up and stop the run. And even in Dallas last year, he didn't have Micah Parsons, then got Quentin Williams halfway through the season. Defense improved somewhat, but a lot of guys were hurt and out for a lot of the year. Overshown was hurt. They brought in Logan Wilson, and he wasn't good, and a lot of reasons as to why they want to run defense in Dallas. But I think he's fine. I think as an assistant, a former DC, former head coach, you can never have enough of those guys in your room. And if Morris leaves, then he's at least a candidate to be brought in and get promoted. Although I wouldn't love that. But I like it. It's a fine move. He'll go into the Gus Bradley role and he'll fill it nicely. I don't think there's too much to take away from it other than that, simply because, well, I don't think he'll have that big of a role behind the scenes. It'll be more of the Shanahan and Morris show than the Shanahan and Morris and Eberflus show in 2026. But let's keep moving along because Fluffy Ninja, haven't seen you in a long time. Thank you so much for being in here. They ask, do you think Bosa will be restructured? I think so. The cap hit's too high. If he gets, I think, is it $70 million, a $40 million cap hit? It's really high. If he gets that, I don't know what they're doing. But yeah, you talk to Nick, get it down. He'll take more money up front if he can. So I think to benefit you, they have to. He's hurt now. You aren't going to see the benefit of him. He could look great this year. I don't know. But it seems like you're banking on Bosa being himself in 27 and showing a semblance of himself towards the end of this year. Maybe I'm wrong there. I hope I am. But I think you kind of have to by principle. You want to kind of keep carryover cap in your back pocket. And maybe if they really love a free agent, John Franklin Myers, Onyemata, maybe it's Romeo Dobbs or Mike Evans or Alec Pierce. I don't know. And they need some money. Nick will say, I'll take cash for a lower cap hit easily. So I think they do. And I think they should. But maybe that's based on inside information I don't have on Nick's recovery, which hopefully is going well. But that may be the hinge point with that. But I think they do this offseason. Moving along, though, to our next and final linebacker in the room, because everybody wants to sign the big name free agents. Everybody's tossing out Mike Evans, Alec Pierce, and the biggest defensive tackle and the biggest edge rusher and Trey Hendrickson and Joey Bosa. And I'm like, no. The Niners probably aren't going to be in that group of player. And sometimes you have to project. Like the NFL draft, for example, is you can have the blue chippers you know are going to be hits or are pretty easy going to be hits. But sometimes you have to believe or project what guys can do in new systems and new schemes from college to the NFL and in free agency. Sometimes you have to project where one guy doesn't fit somewhere else. Maybe he can fit with you. And I think that Jack Conklin, the Chiefs linebacker that is being blocked by a slew of better linebackers out there in Kansas City, didn't get to play much with the Chiefs, and I think is ready for the next step in his career. Not going to cost you too much money. He can be a depth, special teamer, Sam linebacker, but I really like what I've seen from him on tape, and more importantly, on his PFF. The analytics scream Conklin deserves more reps. With KC as a backup, Sam reserved linebacker, a 78.5 defense grade, 83.2 coverage grade, a 65.1 run defense grade. Again, played limited snaps with Kansas City, but missed 0% of his tackles. Pretty sure tackler. You wish he had some more speed and, was a little more aware of the play and had more, high IQ, but I think that comes with playing more compared to being a depth piece. And I think if tasked with being the fourth or fifth linebacker again on special teams, but given maybe a chance to earn a starting job if you don't love D. Winters or Nicholas Martin, I think he actually has some high upside that can kind of prove itself in training camp and preseason. So I would be all in on Jack Conklin. Not going to cost you a lot of money. You want some more depth bodies in the room. I'd rather sign Jack Conklin than Eric Hendricks. I'd rather sign Jack Conklin than maybe spend $6 million, $5 million on Luke Gifford. I think Conklin can be a really solid piece, whether it's for Brant Boyer's unit or Raheem Morris's defense, because they need linebacker help, and I don't think they want to invest the money. Thus, don't go for Chenal. Go for Jack Conklin. I think that, to me, is a cheap, no one talking about option that San Francisco could look at this offseason. But before we get to the secondary, which has been a big controversial point for the fan base, one, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show. But two, spring's around the corner. We're in March. We are 3 months into 2026. Free agency is here. The draft's almost here. Baseball's in full swing. World Baseball Classic, spring training, opening day's a month away. The NBA is still kicking. Hockey's in full gear. If you want to do any of that, go to a sporting event, go to a concert, use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com, and you can save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Gas is like $5.50 again. It's nuts. If you can save $20, you can take it. And I would take it too. So use that promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com, and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Okay. We have 6 defensive free agent targets left, and they all are there to fix the secondary. There's been talk of, well, you love Stout, you like Lenore, but Renardo Green, will they trade him? Will they keep him? I think they'll keep him. But is he the long-term solution next to those guys? And at safety, Jair Brown sucks. Mustafa has been up and down, and I think there's more ups to come, but that has to kind of play itself out. So the Niners really have to find a depth cornerback behind Green or find a starter in place of him. And at safety, they have to find a starter at some place, whether it's free agency or the draft. Maybe it's both. I don't know. But San Francisco has to improve that room in some capacity. You cannot toss out there Jaylinn Brown and Marquise Siegel and Daryl Luter Jr. as your primary backups. Pinnock's gone for good reason. He wasn't very good. It's Mustafa. It's Saran Neal, who's a special teamer only. You have to find a handful of more guys in that room. And I think if you want to go big and you want to get crazy, the big name out there right now is Josh Jobe, the Seattle Seahawks cornerback. Market value is around $10 million per year. I think he'll probably be back in Seattle. Maybe I'm wrong about that, and I think he might price himself out of San Francisco's range. But he's a very unique player because the box score, the analytics will tell you he's not really that impressive, right? He's 56.5 defensive grade last year, 50 tackles, a 9.8% missed tackle rate. So he's a sure tackler, but the defensive grade is not very good. The run defense, though, is where he makes his bread and butter, a 74.2 run defense grade last year. But he really has struggled in coverage in 2025, a 51.8% reception rate. That is really good. However, he has allowed 3 touchdowns, 457 yards, and more importantly, this dude is a penalty machine. 10 penalties called on him last year, whether accepted or declined. This dude is big. He's 5'11", 190 pounds with 32.5-inch arms. He's grabby. He's physical. He wants to shut down receivers at the line of scrimmage. He wants to get in your face and get in your grill, and that may get you excited because it gets me excited. You want to have those physical kind of domineering presences on your defense, and he is that. He's the guy that has 9 pass breakups, 1 interception, will get in, again, the wide receiver's grill, and he was in Seattle last year. Could he make sense in San Francisco? I don't know if he fits the scheme perfectly, but if you want to steal your rival's player, bring him into San Francisco and see if it works out. It's an option. However, I do have my concerns because the coverage grade isn't great, and he does seem like Seattle has a lot of good defensive secondary pieces, but you have to have that rangy safety that can cover the ground if Jobe gets beat. Because if you want to play press, get in a guy's grill, you got to have good safeties behind you. Seattle has good safeties behind them in Love and Bryant that can cover. Jobe is more of that kind of Tariq Woolen, albeit much smaller than him, but is like, I'm taking a chance. I'm going to throw a figurative punch and let's get physical. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. He has the body and the tenacity, the mindset to go against bigger body receivers, but that can bite you. Again, 10 penalties last year and a really bad coverage grade. So he's a player that if San Francisco fixes safety, I like a lot more because he has some protection over the top. But until they do that, Jobe doesn't make a lot of sense unless they have a plan in place. But I could see him being a target in some capacity. The next player, though, I think is kind of a given. He is the fourth Falcon I have on this list simply because Raheem Morris likes to get his own guys out there. And I, to be honest with you, would hate this. I believe the Niners would target D. Alford. I think Morris would want to bring him in as the 4th or 5th cornerback, and maybe he's backing up Green. However, again, I would hate this. Market value is around $6 million. He's 5'11", 180 pounds with 28-inch arms, so not the lankiest cornerback in the room. He played 16 games last year. He started 7 of them, so he does have experience starting, but he's really bad, like really bad. A 52.8 defensive grade, 45 tackles, a 16.9% missed tackle rate. Those short arms coming into play, that's terrifying. A 35.8 run defense grade and a 58.6 coverage grade with an 86.5% reception rate allowed. This guy is terrifying to me. And if that's who they sign, I think they will sign him. I think they will sign D. Alford. I hate it. I don't understand it. I know he has experience in the defense, but this is not the guy you bring in. This is not the guy you want being your cornerback 3, 4. He's a guy who is fighting for a job, not earning one via contract. But Morris, continuity, defense, once his dude's in the building, I think D'Alford will be a San Francisco 49er, and I'm begging he's not because the outlook is terrible because he's a bad player, like a really bad player. When struggling defenses get rid of players, that isn't a good sign. And Alford was on a pretty bad Falcons secondary last year, and they're not going to bring him back. Now, they're having somewhat of a defensive schematic change, albeit Olbricht's taking over, and he was there last year too, but it's not good. It's not good. Brandon says, Reek Woolen, please. No. He's big, and he's dumb. No. The archetype makes sense. He's fast. He's big. He's physical. That dude has more mental lapses than I can count on my one hand. And him and Dante Whitner hate each other. So it's not going to work out. But if you can find a 6 foot, whatever cornerback that's 200 pounds that can not be dumb, sign me up. But Woolen, I think, is just mentally doesn't have the ability to kind of carry himself through a whole game. He has so many lapses where it's like, God, dude, like you can be so good, but you have too many mental lapses and mistakes where you're just like, it's not there. Until he figures it out, he's not worthy of a massive contract. Go somewhere else, better defensive coach, which is hard to think of because you were in Seattle last year, but he is more body than brain, if that makes sense. And that doesn't mean he can't change it, but right now it's more body than brain, more brawn than brain, right? But D'Alford, not on him at all. However, we did get indications this morning that if the Jaguars do not sign Montaric Brown, the Niners are going to have interest in him in free agency, which they should. And many of you out there, I'm sure on Twitter and social media, were like, who is Montaric Brown? I never heard that name before. This dude is awesome. And when you use the word awesome, or you want to hype up a free agent, you just go to the numbers. And if that doesn't work, you go to the tape to show people. Thankfully, both things show an awesome player because the numbers jump out in a big way. One, he's 6 foot, 190 pounds. He's got good size. He has really good length, 31.25-inch arms. He's like the middle ground between Josh Jobe and D'Alford. He has shorter arms than Jobe, but he's 1 inch taller and the same weight. And this dude is tremendous all around. This past year with Jacksonville, he'll go for a price of around $10 million per year, but he was great with Jacksonville last year. A 72.8 defensive grade, 41 tackles, a 13.2% missed tackle rate. A little high, but not too bad. He had 16 run stops, a 56.4 run defense grade, but a 75.5 defensive passing coverage grade with a 54% reception rate, 3 touchdowns allowed, so not great in that department, but he had 9 PBUs and 2 interceptions. This dude has ball skills, and we all watched last year. This Niners defense can't catch the football. Get a guy that has 2 picks and 9 PBUs, that's balls in the air, and that's balls going the other way. That is what you want on this defense. I would love Montaric Brown in San Francisco, but all indications say he's going to get paid as he deservedly should. But if he's, looking to come to San Francisco and play for a winner, would love him in San Francisco, excuse me. But all indications say that Jacksonville wants him back in a big way. So we'll see how things go. We have about, 12, 24 hours until free agency begins. But Montaric Brown, watch out for his name because he is going to be highly paid in free agency this year. But let's move one step further back to safety because, again, you don't want Jair Brown hogging up a space again. He was terrible last year, bad last 2 years. San Francisco has to find a new safety. There are many options out there. There's some high-end options, some low-end options, some mid-tier options, and I have one of each for you today. Starting on the low end, how about Tony Adams from the New York Jets? Going to go for about $6.5 million in free agency. I have him as a starter on here. He's probably more of a depth piece, kind of that safety 3 kind of player that kind of roams around and fills in different roles when needed. He has started at times with the Jets and has shown some upside, albeit he is somebody that has really struggled when it comes to tackling, but he's played free safety, played in the box, he's played in the slot, so he does give you versatility at the position. But like I said, a 63.7 defensive grade. However, that's 36 tackles and a 15.5% missed tackle rate and 17 run stops. The run defense is not really what you want it to be. He's more of that free safety type of player, roaming around, use your speed. However, again, in San Francisco, you got to stop the run. And in Raheem Morris's defense, safety is extremely important. As a depth piece, he can make some sense because the coverage grade actually isn't that bad. A 67.1 coverage grade, a 61.9% reception rate. Again, not bad, and 5 PBUs to his name. So as a depth guy, kind of a bargain binning and Walmart movie rental piece, Tony Adams could make some sense. But if you want that big thumper in the box, that's when you turn to a player like Nick Cross, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Nick Cross, he can do it all. He is, last year with the Colts, the handyman, the utility man. Last year with the Colts, 551 snaps in the box, 279 at free safety, 150 in the slot, and 102 on the defensive line. Nick Cross is the do-it-all utility player where you're just like, oh my God, Swiss Army knife, Nick Cross out there. Going to go for a similar asking price to what Adams might go to, simply because they're very different players. Nick Cross struggles in coverage. A 50.4 coverage grade last year, a 72.5% reception rate allowed, 4 touchdowns, and 110 passer rating allowed last year with the Colts. Not great. That's not good. But if you want a big nickel, you want to bring your safety in the box, that is what Nick Cross wants to do. 97 tackles last year, an 11.7% missed tackle rate, 38 stops. He had 16 pressures and 3 sacks last year as a safety. If you want the kind of do-it-all type of guy, move him around and don't let defenses know where he's going to be at any given play, Nick Cross is that guy of like, I want to use the safety like a weapon. He's someone that I can see the Niners coveting in that case. And for as bad as Jason Pinnock was last year, Nick Cross will give you some upgrades in the department, but we'll see what Raheem Morris does. However, I have a favorite I want to share with you because I think San Francisco needs to fix safety in a big way. Ever since Jimmy Ward left to go to the Texans, this team has lacked a coverage safety. And if you want to have Mustafa out there hammering dudes and making plays, you have to have protection on the back end. And with that said, let me introduce you to the best safety on the market this year. That is Jaylinn Hawkins of the near Super Bowl champions, albeit the game wasn't close, New England Patriots. Jaylinn Hawkins is an all-around phenomenal player. This dude can get to the quarterback. He had 2 sacks and 5 pressures last year with a 74 pass rushing grade. In coverage, a 79 coverage grade and a 65.5% catch rate allowed, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns. Okay, you're getting scared, but he had 4 interceptions and 2 pass breakups. That is what you call ball skills. This team needs that, no pun intended, that ball Hawkins, if you want to call it that, on the back end of this defense. And he was a mainstay. He was a standout player on that Patriots defense last year. That jumped from the worst in football to one of the best in the league. He played 15 games, had an 87.1 run defense grade last year, and an 82.5 defensive grade with 48 tackles, an 11.4% missed tackle rate, and 12 run stops. He played 93 snaps in the slot. He played 201 snaps in the box, and he played 524 snaps at free safety. If there is kind of one, not, not like trenches based player I want to sign, it's Jaylinn Hawkins. Jaylinn Hawkins is the guy where I'm like, please, please get him to San Francisco. Raheem Morris values safety so much, I wouldn't mind paying for one. The Niners hate doing that, which you'll see in my predictions how things go. But I would love Jaylinn Hawkins to be in San Francisco this next year. The dude can play. They need somebody like him on the back end. I would rather have him over Cross and Adams, and I'd honestly rather have him over a cornerback or a linebacker. Like, safety is such a big need in the defense, and Hawkins is the best one out there for what he can provide and what San Francisco needs this offseason. But okay, I've given you around 20 defensive targets today, and I gave you 20 offensive targets on Friday, giving you 40 free agent targets. Don't say I didn't help you out and give you a kind of guideline to free agency, because I have. But you want my predictions. I want to share with you my predictions because with 40 targets out there, which ones do San Francisco sign? And unfortunately, for the 49ers, I don't have them signing 40 free agents. I only have them signing 7. And I'll give you some more moves I think they could make this offseason. But let's kick things off and let's stay on defense for a second, because I think San Francisco is going to be a Falcon heavy free agent class. And I don't love it. Some guys I do, some guys I don't, but I'm gonna give you player, year, and contractual value. So starting up things first from the trenches, I think San Francisco signs David Onyemata from the Falcons on a 1-year deal. He's an older player. They got to have a stopgap guy to get them to the next guy, whether it's a draft pick or just kind of fix the problem for a year. 1 year, $8.5 million, plug and play. Let him go to work. He will fix your defensive tackle position, where you have Collins, who you love, West, who you love, and Onyemata, who you plug in and say, we can love you too, because you're going to fix a big problem for us on the interior of our defense. Take on double teams. He's a good pass rusher, great run defender, and can be a 3-down player for you in 2026. The next guy, sticking on the defensive line, is Arnold Ebiketie. I think, again, going back to the Falcons, I think Raheem Morris is saying, give me my guys that know my defense, know my scheme, and I know their strengths and weaknesses. I think San Francisco releases or trades Bryce Huff, and they sign Ebiketie to a 2-year, $17 million deal this offseason. You just pluck one out and plug one in. Ebiketie gives you a higher run defense upside, albeit a lower pass rushing upside, but he's got to play next to Bosa, and with Michael, Onyemata, and Collins, you could see him take a big jump, or somewhat of a big jump, with a better defensive line around him, because the Falcons' defensive line last year wasn't good. It was a bunch of thin, frail dudes that couldn't get to the quarterback, minus James Pierce Jr. Now you got some thick dogs up front in Michael and Bosa, Onyemata, Collins. That, to me, can free up things for a player like Ebiketie and make a 2-year, $17 million deal in actual value on the free agent market. Moving along, though, to linebacker and cornerback. Quickly here, I think San Francisco signs linebacker Jack Conklin to a 2-year, $4 million deal. Baseline special teamer, but if he grows, I think there is room to be a linebacker 3 on a defense, because he can cover, run defender. He just needs the reps. He just needs to play. And he didn't get to play much with the Chiefs, but he's a good special teamer. You might lose Luke Gifford and Garrett Wallow. Go get Conklin. He's younger, quicker, faster, maybe stronger. I don't know, but 2 years, $4 million. That's cheap, free, easy money for a linebacker. And it alleviates the need to have to take one of those guys, on day 3, because this linebacker class is not very good. So take one now while you can and avoid needing one in the draft. The next guy is D. Alford. I hate it, but I think it's going to happen. And I think D. Alford for 1 year, $5 million. He becomes a CB4, CB3, and Morris will plug him in there, and we'll see him struggle, and we'll all say, told you so, because he's just not good. But he knows the defense, and he fits. So on defense, Onyemata, 1 year, $8 million. Ebiketie, 2 years, $17 million. Conklin, 2 years, $4 million. Alford, 1 year, $5 million. With them releasing or trading Bryce Huff in the upcoming days. I also offensively have Mac Jones not being traded and staying quarterback 2 this year. I don't think San Francisco will lower their trade value for him, their price tag for him, and I don't think other teams are chomping at the bit to acquire a player like Mac Jones. I just really don't. That said, let's move back to the only 2 free agent offensive pieces I have them signing, which maybe you don't think it's enough. I would agree. But I do think the Niners only signed 2 offensive free agents this year. The first one being left guard John Simpson to a 2-year, $12 million deal. If you want to know more about him, look at last Friday's show with the offensive targets. I tell you a whole rundown about him, what he did last year and 2 years ago, how he fits in the offense. So go watch that video when this one's done, because I think John Simpson can be a nice placeholder for a draft pick, thus a 2-year, $12 million contract for Simpson. I think there is what he showed in 25, a far higher upside, knowing what he did in 2024. And you can mention Ben Barch. I almost put Ben Barch on here too, but I think John Simpson should be the guy. I think Elijah Vera Tucker is too expensive. Elgton Jenkins could be interesting because he can play everywhere. I just don't know what his market value will be, and I know Simpson won't be too expensive, so I put him on there. There is some ties to Robert Saleh in the wide zone, and so I figured, with the Jets, put him in San Francisco can make some sense out there. That said, there is one final offensive free agent I think San Francisco signs this offseason, and that is wide receiver Romeo Doubs to a 4-year, $68 million deal. It's not Juwan Jennings. It's not Pierce. It's not Evans. It's not even Deebo Samuel. I think they signed Romeo Doubs to a 4-year, $68 million deal. It alleviates the need to have to go receiver in the first round, or if you go receiver in the first round, you're looking at a really, if healthy, good receiver room in 2026. Doubs, Pearsall, insert your receiver. It fills the X wide receiver need for you. It allows you to pick more of the player that you think you need on day 2, whether it's round 2 or 3. And I think it just takes pressure off of the front office in the draft, because the X wide receivers really are, it's Carnell Tate, it's Denzel Boston, it's Jordan Tyson, and it's Omar Cooper. But they're all kind of different in that regard. Malachi Fields on day 3, maybe late day 2. If you get Doubs, you don't feel like, oh my God, we have to find our guy. And so paying $17 million for a guy for 4 years that has been really good, was healthy all of last year, seemingly past the concussion stuff. Somebody who I wasn't high on to begin free agency, but have grown to really like coming out of this. I would also love Jalen Naylor in this grouping, but I think it's Romeo Doubs is the wideout they sign this offseason. So what do you think of the 7-player Niners free agency prediction? Romeo Doubs, John Simpson, David Onyemata, Ebiketie, Cochran, and D. Alford. What do you think of those guys? Drop your comments down below. Free agency starts tomorrow. The legal tampering period begins tomorrow, meaning we're going to have some fun. Thus, come right back here throughout the entire week, where we're going to react to all the signings, all the moves, the wins, the losses, the comers, the goers. That was weird phrasing, but you know what I mean. The signings, the departures. That's what I meant. But thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave us that 5-star audio podcast review. Follow us on social media at 49ers 49ers_access is the X or the Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. That said, my name is Sterling Bennett. Welcome to the new NFL league year starting on Wednesday. We are in 2026 now, folks. We're not in 2025 anymore. And I am so excited for a new NFL season quickly coming upon us in the next few months, with free agency being the beginning of that on Monday, then official signings beginning on Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, as always, stay faithful.